The Great Molasses Flood, 1919. When a city drowned in sugar. Intro. The impossible disaster. Imagine walking down a quiet city street. It's winter. The air is cold. Nothing feels unusual. And then, a wall of liquid sugar, taller than a building, comes racing towards you. Not water, not fire, but molasses. This is not fiction. This actually happened. On January 15, 1919, the city of Boston, Massachusetts, experienced one of the strangest and deadliest industrial disasters in modern history. This is the story of the Great Molasses Flood, the day a city drowned in sugar. Welcome to my channel. Today, I'm going to tell you a true story so strange and terrifying, it almost feels unreal. In the year 1919, in the busy streets of Boston, there was no war, no earthquake, and no storm in the sky. Yet a deadly disaster struck the city without any warning. A giant storage tank suddenly burst open, releasing a massive wave of molasses. Thick, sticky sugar syrup, rushing through the streets at incredible speed. Buildings collapsed like paper, streets turned into deadly traps, and people were pulled under the heavy syrup, struggling to escape but unable to move. This horrifying tragedy became known as the Great Molasses Flood of 1919, the day a city literally drowned in sugar. Stay with me till the very end, because the real cause behind this disaster and how it changed safety laws and history forever is more shocking than you can imagine. Chapter 1. Boston, 1919. The year was 1919. World War I had just ended. America was exhausted, hopeful, and rebuilding. Boston's North End neighborhood was crowded, busy, and alive. Immigrant families lived close together. Horses pulled wagons through narrow streets. Children played outside warehouses. Standing silently among them was a giant steel tank, 50 feet tall and 90 feet wide. Inside it were 2.3 million gallons of molasses. To most people, it was just another industrial structure. No one imagined it was a ticking time bomb. Chapter 2. Why so much molasses? Molasses wasn't just food. In 1919, it was big business. Molasses was used to make industrial alcohol, which could be turned into explosives, fuel, and rum. The company that owned the tank was United States Industrial Alcohol Company. They rushed to store as much molasses as possible because prohibition, the ban on alcohol, was about to begin. Speed mattered more than safety, and that decision would cost lives. Chapter 3. Warning signs ignored. The tank was badly built. It was too thin. Poorly tested, never properly inspected. From the day it was filled, it leaked. Molasses dripped from its seams like sweat. Children from the neighborhood would collect the leaking molasses in cans. Free sweetness in hard times. Instead of fixing the leaks, the company simply painted the tank brown to hide them. No safety tests, no inspections, no emergency planning. Just silence. Chapter 4. The day everything broke, January 15th, 1919. Around 12:40 p.m., the temperature suddenly rose after days of freezing cold. Inside the tank, pressure built rapidly. Then, a deep rumbling sound echoed through the neighborhood. Metal groaned, rivets snapped, and in an instant, the tank exploded. Chapter 5. A wave of death. A massive wave of molasses burst out 25 feet high, moving at 35 miles per hour. It crushed buildings. It flipped wagons. It bent steel beams. People were knocked off their feet instantly. Molasses poured through streets, windows, and homes. The problem wasn't just impact. Molasses is thick. Once you fell into it, you couldn't move. People were trapped, screaming, suffocating, unable to breathe as the sticky liquid filled their mouths and lungs. Horses drowned where they stood. Children were buried alive. Entire families disappeared under the syrup. Chapter 6. Heroes in a Sweet Hell. Rescue efforts began immediately. Firefighters, police officers, and sailors from a nearby naval yard rushed in. But rescue was almost impossible. Molasses stuck to everything. Boots wouldn't lift, stretchers wouldn't move. Rescuers used wooden planks to walk across the streets. Some victims were found days later, frozen in hardened sugar. In total, 21 people died. Over 150 were injured. The neighborhood was destroyed. And Boston would never forget the smell. Chapter 7. The aftermath? Cleanup took weeks. Salt water was pumped from the harbor to wash away the molasses. Still, on hot summer days for years afterward, people claimed the city smelled faintly sweet. But the disaster wasn't over. The question remained: who was responsible? Chapter 8. The historic lawsuit. Families of the victims demanded justice. What followed was one of the largest class action lawsuits of its time. For 6 years, engineers, scientists, and witnesses testified. The company claimed anarchists sabotaged the tank. The explosion was unavoidable, but evidence told another story. The tank was poorly designed, never pressure tested, built by people with no engineering background. In 1925, the court ruled the company was guilty of negligence. They were ordered to pay millions in damages. Chapter 9. Why this disaster changed history. The Great Molasses Flood transformed America. It led to strict building codes, mandatory safety inspections, corporate accountability laws. For the first time, companies could no longer hide behind profit. This disaster saved countless future lives. Not with weapons, but with regulation. Chapter 10. Why you've never heard of it. So why isn't this taught in schools? Because no war was fought. No nation fell. No famous leader was involved. Yet it was one of the clearest examples of how corporate greed can kill. History doesn't only happen on battlefields. Sometimes it happens in the streets. Outrow. A sweet warning. The Great Molasses Flood reminds us that disasters don't always come with fire or explosions. Sometimes they come quietly, leaking slowly, until one day it's too late. If you enjoyed this story, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment which forgotten historical event you want next. Because history isn't just about what we remember, it's about what we choose not to forget.